Hey guys, how you all doing and ting? Welcome back and ting and ting and ting. And today, well, not today, but hey, listen. We're gonna be watching a video on Ireland. This one is how Ireland is secretly becoming the richest country in the world. That's gonna be interesting. Let's see what this is all about. Let's YouTubers simmer.
In 1847, artist James Mahoney documented the awful situation unfolding in Ireland. His depictions were filled with haunting tales of desperation and despair. Mothers wept and wailed as they cradled the bodies of their starving children, begging for a few coins to afford a coffin. The streets were crowded with emaciated masses, their bones jutting out from under their tattered clothing. Once fertile potato fields laid ravaged, their stalks blackened by a deadly pathogen. The Great Hunger, as it was known, claimed the lives of 1 million people, or 11% of Ireland's entire population, in just 7 short years. The effects of this disaster have been felt for generations, as the nation's population, even to this day, has never recovered. Yet after the dust had settled, Ireland continued to be impoverished as the industrialization sweeping the European continent passed them by. Coupled with its relative lack of natural resources, societal unrest, and decades of disastrous economic policies, Ireland remained a backwards, largely agrarian society well into the 20th century, earning it the unflattering title of the sick man of Europe. Even by the 1970s, Ireland appeared trapped in a cycle of stagnation, with its
Okay, here's the thing, okay? He said that Ireland was backwards. And one of the things he said is because of the lack of natural resources that they have. But also, is you have to think of the stigma that came with them because of the struggles that they had, which in part was because of the rule that they had. Now, some people are in the comment section say, "Oh, the savages and the this and the that." And that's the problem. We don't look into the root of what's causing the issue. Now, that's not a matter of blaming anybody. Let's get that straight right there. Nobody, I'm not one for blaming. But something is causing the lack of people being able to manage themselves. And something is making it a deliberate thing for them not to be able to govern themselves because of discrimination. Now, there's a parallel to Africa because let's think about this, right? Because Africa have all these natural resources, and yet they were considered backwards. Why would they say that about them? Because it's easy for you to say somebody's backwards and uneducated, so you could steal all the natural resources from under them. And I guess that's just human greed. And I'm drawing a parallel here because we talk about two separate races of people that's happened to. And we know it's happened to a certain degree with the Native Americans here and certain European tribes that in Europe itself, the certain Europeans did that to certain other Europeans. And we know that happened with certain African tribes because, there were really, really rich African tribes and really, really poor ones. And the poor ones, they got discriminated against because of their tribal affiliation and stuff like that. And then there is people who look down on other people of different races and all of that. You understand what I'm saying? So then we have to figure out the root of the problem instead of just going, well, they're savages, or you know what I mean, they did it to themselves because they're fighting among themselves. Because if people are poor and they're desperate, of course they're going to fight among themselves for what little there is. It's happening right now, right here. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there now with the working class because everybody is trying to survive. Most people are surviving paycheck to paycheck. And everybody want to take care of their family. And that could lead into a whole lot of different issues happening, like deadbeat dads who go, screw it, I don't want to do it, you know what I mean? Because, hey, this is too hard, or whatever. So it's like you got to look at the whole picture before you condemn a whole race of people, a whole nationality of people, a whole tribe of people. to be in one way when they are just surviving with whatever they are dealt. That's my humble opinion.
Its citizens experiencing subpar standards of living, many of whom found migrating away as their only chance for finding opportunity. Yet today, if you look at a list of the
And to add on top of that, like you said, they're migrating away. Hence the migration of South Americans coming to America. And I know that, that the same thing is happening in Europe with all the Africans going there and all the other parts of the world going there. If you go to places like South America, like I'll give you the perfect example. The banana trade in South America. Those aren't owned by a lot of South Americans. Those are owned by foreign companies that come there and they pretty much monopolize the banana trade. They pay little and nothing, they export it, and they make all the money. Now, they couldn't do that without the help of certain South American rich people who, you know what I mean, how should I put it? Who are, with the people who are doing that, who are part of the problem. Leaders who are part of the problem. And they pick sides too, you know what I mean? It's either one Western superpower or the Eastern superpower or something like that, while the people are suffering. That was really prominent in the 80s and it's never stopped. It's never stopped. So that's why you have that big influx of people migrating and trying to find a better life elsewhere. Same thing with the Irish people, you know what I mean? All of that suffering happening, they're going to migrate. What are they going to do? And people get so upset when people migrate, and what are they going to do? Stay there and starve? No, here's what I see is happening, and this is my opinion. It's starting to happen. But okay, I'll give you a perfect example. Where I live here, very poor state. What happens? Most of the people leave. When I came to this little city that I live in here, the population was about between 80,000 and 100,000. Now it's 40,000 people. And it balloons up to like 60,000 only when the university students are in town. But generally, people are leaving this place. They migrate into other cities to survive. And then when people try to come across the border to survive, they go, oh my God, why they come in here? You know what I mean? This, that, the other. Well, big coal corporations come here and they monopolize the place. And the poor people are just struggling to make ends meet. They're going to migrate. And that is causing all these issues where you have drug addiction like on the rampant, crime is on the rampant, drug dealing is on the rampant. But nobody's looking at the what's causing it, you know what I mean? And I personally think it's coming from the top down, coming from a third world country. How it happens for me and what I see, especially in the third world, is from the top down. They have a few on the top taking all everything, all the resources, and a few in the bottom just scrambling to get the scraps. And of course, in that bottom section, there's people there vying for it. So it's going to be a dog-eat-dog situation. It's a rat race down there.
The world's richest nations, you'll see something truly astounding. If you exclude micronations, Ireland is now the second richest country in the world. Its citizens are among the most educated, wealthy, and happiest of any nation. But to the naked eye and the foundational principles of macroeconomics, it makes little sense how this was achieved so rapidly. Unlike the other countries on the list, Ireland does not have any inherent qualities that make it especially primed for prosperity. It does not have trillions of dollars of oil like Norway and Qatar. Its population is not minute like Luxembourg and Singapore, which makes it harder to achieve rapid growth. And it's not more educated or historically wealthy like Switzerland. But maybe the most bizarre thing about Ireland's economy today is that it continues to grow at rates that should just not be possible for a highly developed nation. Take 2015, for example, in which the aggregate GDP growth of the other 5 nations discussed was 2.76%. Ireland's that year was 25.2%, the fastest of any nation in the world. It therefore appears as though Ireland is primed to become the richest nation in the world. But how exactly did Ireland become so incredibly rich so quickly? And is this economic miracle just too good to be true?
Okay, my Irish people and thing, comment down below. Is this accurate so far? No, the whole educated thing, I could understand that because for some reason, well, a struggling people always want to educate their kids. Always, I know on my island, education is tops. Education is tops. My island is like what 98% literate. So education is always important to. And I'll be honest with you. The only place I see where there's a post-struggling people where education is not a big factor is here, right here. In this, especially in this little town where I am. Maybe it's different in other areas, but I could speak for here. You know what I mean? Education doesn't seem to be at the forefront. Let's keep watching this.
This video is sponsored by Crossout, an amazingly fun online vehicle shooter game where all vehicles are player-made. Utilizing a huge arsenal of parts, you have complete creative freedom to come up with your ultimate battle vehicle. From tanks with chainsaws to pickup trucks with lasers, the only limit is your creativity. And thanks to its intuitive design, the game is incredibly easy to get into. Build your vehicle from scratch, test it out, then it cannot be overstated just how difficult life was for the Irish in the 19th century. At the time, Ireland was under the control of the British Empire, which not only exploited the country's resources, but also treated its people as second-class citizens. The Irish economy itself was archaic, with 90% of the workforce engaged in simple agriculture, most of which was subsistence farming. To make matters worse, laws and social traditions dictated that all sons would inherit equal shares of their father's land, leading to smaller and smaller plots with each successive generation. This meant less food and less efficiency in production, as small plots were inferior to large estates in terms of their ability to invest in better tools and allocate labor more efficiently. As a result, the population was trapped in ever-worsening conditions, and when combined with Ireland's lack of coal, iron, and sufficient capital, the prospect of industrializing like its neighboring nations was impossible. In fact, by the time Southern Ireland became independent some 70 years after the famine, it had only a few factories, breweries, and textile mills. And that independence, won through a bloody war in 1922, did not prove to help Ireland's economic situation, as it came with significant costs. Not only did the conflict physically damage the economy, but the new nation then found itself in a decades-long economic war with its former ruler and main trading partner, the British Empire. Along with the resulting debt crisis, Ireland was wholly unprepared for the worst global economic crisis in modern history. The Great Depression rocked the already tiny economy, and by 1932, Ireland found itself more impoverished than before, damaged by its connection to the outside world. Looking for a better way, Ireland observed the only industrialized nation that was not only surviving the Great Depression, but thriving due to its self-reliance. That nation was the communist Soviet Union, whose relative isolation from international banking and trade shielded it from external shocks. In an effort to break free from the last vestiges of British domination, industrialize on its own terms, and find its own way out of poverty, Ireland took some notes from the Soviets and pursued protectionist policies to isolate its economy in the goal of becoming self-reliant. The government quickly seized and monopolized major corporations and effectively banned most foreign investment and trade. But with hindsight, we know that economic isolation and protectionism is a recipe for disaster. However, in Ireland's case, the negative effects were especially damaging. Ireland was hardly industrialized to begin with. It lacked the vast resources required, and its small workforce was unable to start or even staff all the industries necessary to provide the economy with adequate supplies. As a result, the economy contracted further, and conditions became so terrible that 500,000 Irish fled the country within a decade.
Wow.
But perhaps most significantly, Ireland's protectionist policies meant that it missed out on the post-World War II European economic boom. By the late 1950s, Ireland was now even further behind the rest of the continent than it had been when it gained independence. By 19
Now, this may have been a recipe for disaster, but then when you take a look at the situation that they went through with outsiders coming in, I could understand why they would do that protectionism stuff and believe that it would work, or hope that it would work. Because I mean, how are you going to trust people to come in there and invest and do all of that and take care of your people if before that they didn't?
1958, something needed to change, and the failed economic policies needed to be rectified. Under Prime Minister Sean Lemass and with economist T.K. Whittaker's new economic development plan, Ireland slowly began to embrace the industrial world. State-owned corporations became private again. Foreign investment was encouraged, and trade barriers slowly lifted. Maybe most emblematic of the time was the establishment of Shannon Airport's Free Zone. This was essentially an industrial park where companies were not taxed on the manufacturing of goods until they left the area. This innovative approach allowed companies to bypass the high tariffs commonly found in the world at the time, and it proved to be wildly attractive to multinational corporations, later including titans like De Beers, Intel, and GCAS, the latter of which would eventually help make Ireland an aviation powerhouse, as today 22% of all passenger aircraft flown in the world are leased by Irish-owned companies.
Oh, I
Additionally,
did not
on
know
a
that.
greater scale, Ireland substantially cut the corporate tax rate. And with the use of its Industrial Development Agency, large grants and further incentives attracted specifically high-quality, high-paying jobs to the local economy. While this was partially subdued due to strict regulations that made hiring and firing Irish workers very difficult, the result of this opening up to the world's markets was successful, and the economy saw significant growth for the first time. At the same time, Ireland was working toward joining the European Economic Alliance, which was the precursor to the European Union. This would later enable Ireland to have much greater access to trade beyond the United Kingdom, which it had once again become overly reliant upon. And when combined with the adoption of the free education scheme in 1967, which was a major boost to overall educational levels, Ireland finally seemed well positioned to break its century-long cycle of being impoverished. However, as the 1970s dawned, Ireland was once again rocked by a series of international and domestic crises that would curtail its hopes for the future. A combination of untethered government spending, 2 international oil crises, a still over-reliance on the British economy, a handful of major bank strikes, and taxes on middle-income workers being as high as 60% caused the economy to erode and then stagnate. The following 2 decades then saw a toxic mix of extreme unemployment peaking above 20%, sustained and dramatic inflation, and massive public debt. Once again, up to 1% of Ireland's entire population was moving out of the country each year. As historian Joe Lee noted in 1989, it is difficult to avoid the conclusion that Irish economic performance has been the least impressive in Western Europe, perhaps in all of Europe, in the 20th century. Once again, it was time for a change, and Ireland began to open up its economy further. It slashed taxes for Irish workers. Across the board, it lowered corporate taxes to 10%, well below the European average of 35%, and it significantly rolled back government spending. It knew this would bring an increase in foreign investment by multinational corporations, just like it did in 1958. But this time, it wanted to maximize results for Irish workers. It did this counterintuitively by overhauling employment regulations, making it much easier to fire and hire workers. All of this would eventually make Ireland the 3rd most business-friendly nation in the world. And it could not have been known at the time, but these efforts and a combination of unique circumstances would allow Ireland to undergo one of the most dramatic economic miracles in history. In less than a decade, Ireland would go from one of the poorest Western European nations to one of the richest. In 1993, the European Union and its single market was founded, in which Ireland was now a part of. The major benefit to this was a substantial cut down on the regulations, hassle, and ultimately the price of trade between European Union members. One fantastic immediate result for Ireland was a quadrupling in the value of its agricultural exports. On top of this, it would receive significant subsidies and developmental loans to expand education, infrastructure, and human capital investment. Yet most importantly to Ireland was that it now had a backdoor into the European market that multinational corporations could use to avoid tariffs and taxes.
It seems like they were opening up, but they still were being cautious about it, and they did it in stages. And it also seemed like they did a lot of things in there to take care of the Irish people, period. You know what I mean? And one of the big things they talk about there is cutting government spending. The government spending here is way, way out of control. But I guess in all political realms in all countries there is this. But the rich going to find a way to parlay themselves into getting the upper hand on things. You understand what I mean? But that's kind of cool that they study what's happening, and we have to change this, and actually set about changing it. Was it done in referendums or voting and stuff like that, or did the government just say we're going to do it regardless to what you want? I wonder how the skepticism was about changing stuff there.
Combined with Ireland's already low corporate tax, its well-educated, English-speaking, and relatively cheap to hire workforce, and its prime geographical location between the United States and Europe, Ireland became an incredibly attractive location for U.S. companies to relocate and/or expand operations. This was especially true for high-tech manufacturing, research and development, and financial services, the timing of which could not have been more perfect, as the US was undergoing its own economic boom and very low interest rates supercharged investments. The sheer amount of investment that would flood Ireland in the 1990s was colossal in its scale. In just 10 years, foreign investment as a component of Ireland's economy went from 2.2% to an astounding 49.2%. Unemployment dropped sharply, as the market was now littered with well-paying jobs. Indeed, during this span, the average Irish worker's wages went from 2/3 that of British workers to being 20% higher.
Wow.
Coupled with the steep cuts to the income tax rate, Irish citizens now had vastly more disposable income than ever before, to which they would shower the rest of the economy in. And while taxes were low, the scale of economic growth enabled the government to ramp up spending on everything from infrastructure, modernizing cities, and attracting even more companies. As these companies then racked up profits and stored it in Irish bank accounts in order to avoid taxes in their home countries, Ireland enabled them to freely spend it in the country by largely allowing them to do so with little to no extra taxes.
Now, something he's saying there that's interesting too. It's like how they set it up is like they give the workers the ability to have disposable income. Now, people don't have a whole lot of disposable income here where I am. Now, wouldn't that really hurt the economy if the people ain't spending the money? Because the people who live there and work there are the ones who's going to keep the economy rolling as far as spending and stuff like that. Sorry about that. That's my doorbell. When somebody ring the doorbell for the other apartment, it rings in here too. I apologize for that there. But you know what I'm saying? Let me get back to this here. You know what I'm saying though? So if we ain't spending, if we don't have disposable money for like luxury items, some businesses are going to go under. You know what I'm saying? If we just buying the necessity like food and paying rent and stuff like that, then wouldn't that become sort of a singular economy where that's all people are doing? Nobody's going to amusement parks or, or doing anything like that much because they can't afford it. Wouldn't that hurt the economy? And in this little town, a lot of the festivals and stuff here, they don't have it anymore because nobody's got money to go spend there. You know what I mean?
Thus creating a positive feedback loop for investment. By 2007, the Irish economy had increased by almost sixfold, making it the third richest nation on the continent and 40% richer than its former British ruler. Yet this growth did indeed come with some trade-offs. Ireland's rapid growth had made its economy very reliant upon U.S. corporations, U.S. banks, and cheap interest rates. Its economy was therefore hyper-exposed to the global economy. At the same time, income inequality rose significantly, though it was still lower than the European average. But maybe the largest drawback was that as its population boomed and disposable incomes increased rapidly, the cost of living shot through the roof. Combined with low interest rates and a lack of government oversight, Ireland's housing market formed a gigantic bubble. Private debts rose in turn, and eventually the nation was home to the second highest average household debts in the world.
Wow.
Along with runaway government spending, Ireland's economy had become fundamentally weak and vulnerable to global shocks. This proved to be disastrous as the world entered the Great Recession. As the US housing market collapsed violently in 2007, eventually taking the world's economy with it, Ireland was hit particularly hard. Housing prices in Dublin decreased by 56%. Widespread defaults sent banks into crisis, and unemployment rose sharply as companies laid off significant portions of their workforce. The entire economy contracted by almost a quarter. As the Irish government stared down the barrel of bankruptcy, it asked and received a titanic bailout by the IMF and the European Union worth €67.5 billion,
Wow.
or 40% of Ireland's total GDP. As concessions for the dramatic bailout, the government took harsh austerity measures, including a significant decrease in state employees' pay, the closing of some 41 government institutions, and a general decrease in government spending. The economy stabilized and then started modest growth by 2013. Yet it appeared as though the Irish economic miracle had finally come to an end. But something truly strange happened in 2015. Ireland reported that in a single year, its economy grew by a staggering 25.2%. To put that into perspective, the second fastest growing economy that year was Ethiopia at 10.4%. 25.2% is a GDP growth figure that should just not be possible for an already rich and developed nation. Therefore, it makes sense why immediately this set off alarm bells for economists who suspected something fishy was going on. And they were right. That year, Apple had initiated a gigantic transfer of $300 billion worth of intangible assets to its Irish subsidiary as part of a decades-long tax avoidance scheme, which was one among many such tools used by large US multinational corporations. Indeed, since the late 80s, Ireland had become the largest tax haven in the world, and actions taken to close its largest tax avoidance tool, known as the Double Irish in 2014, triggered a wave of corporate restructurings. In essence, and without getting into specifics, a now large portion of Ireland's GDP figure had been hyperinflated by revenues that never even touched its economy, and was merely a statistical byproduct of tax evasion. The international and domestic attention this ultimately brought forced the Irish government to start using another metric to measure its economy, known as modified gross national income. In the first year of publishing the new statistic, it was found that Ireland's real economy was 30% smaller than its GDP reported. Not only did this shed new light on the economy, but it brought further international pressure for Ireland to raise its corporate taxes and close its remaining tax schemes. Indeed, Ireland completely closed its major tax loopholes by 2020. So does this mean Ireland's special economic privileges are forever gone, and all those multinational corporations that made it rich are now leaving? The answer is no. Attracting foreign investment, specifically on the scale Ireland did, was more than just having the lowest taxes. And even so, Ireland never had the lowest tax rate to begin with. Today, these companies are choosing to stay in Ireland because they have already invested hundreds of billions of dollars in building the required infrastructure. On top of this, Ireland now has an amazingly skilled and educated workforce that's hard to find anywhere else. And besides the closing of these loopholes, Ireland continues to be a highly business-friendly nation, which makes it a perfect location for global operations. In essence, companies will stay in Ireland because there are no other attractive locations that are worth the cost moving to. But what about the inflated GDP metric? Does this mean Ireland's economic boom only helped foreign companies and not the Irish people themselves? The answer is mostly no. While Ireland's economy is and continues to be overstated, the influx of well-paying jobs and technical expertise that has transformed the economy have made the Irish people much better off than before. And years of investment have opened up opportunities that were just not possible before. However, the very high cost of living will continue to plague its citizens, especially those not employed in highly skilled positions under the foreign company's payroll. Ireland's economic story ultimately boils down to it finally making the right policy decisions, sprinkled with a lot of luck. But Ireland's story also shows that GDP figures alone are often not enough in measuring the true prosperity of a nation. Don't forget to play Crossout today for free. Just click the link in my description to get started and receive.
Wow, that was quite interesting. Never thought of Ireland as being, a heavily industrialized country, or even one of the richest countries over there. You know what I mean? See that stigma again. Oh, they're savages. They're not educated. They're this, they're that. All they do is drink and beer, green. You understand what man say a thing? But you know what, man? Just do it quietly, and take them by storm, take them by surprise, and thing, and that's what usually get them. Wait a minute, now what's going on over there? Why are they growing so quick? I think that's happening in certain African countries right now. Whoa, what's going on here? You know what I mean? But this was quite interesting. I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I have. I'll leave a link to the description, in the description to this video here. You know what I mean? Check out this channel, see what else they have there to offer. And hey man, if you like this video, drop a like on it for me, you know what I mean? And let's keep the peace and love going. Let's keep the understanding of each other going. You all take care of each other, all right? Cool runnings.